This is Mornings with Gary Adshead on Perth 6PR.
So the federal election, as it stands, will be, around May next year. There's some speculation that Labor's preparing to go early. If they do that, it'll be a disaster. They'll be in all sorts of trouble. They shouldn't do that just quietly. They should not do that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But if we talk about next May, it's, within reason, the biggest policy that the Libs and the coalition have thrown down at us is nuclear energy. A complete and utter game changer for the country to go down that road. And, of course, Labor have absolutely poleaxed it in terms of the commentary around it, the expense, the uncertainty, etc. And they've even now called for a parliamentary inquiry or committee to look at nuclear energy in Australia. That's got the opposition a bit concerned about how that's going to look and what it's going to do. Ted O'Brien is the Shadow Minister for Climate Change and Energy. He joins me on the line. G'day, Ted.
G'day, Gary.
All right, so the committee that's been formed, you're saying, has been stacked in Labor's favour?
Yes, indeed. And look, the coalition, we are going to be participating in good faith and we'll be as constructive as we can. But in truth, it's a political stitch-up. So this happened last week in Parliament in Canberra, where Labor stacked the deck. So they have twice as many members on the committee as the coalition, which allows them to basically make any decision they want. And then they also refused some key items to be considered when you're looking at nuclear energy, including comparing it, by the way, to Labor's own plan and a whole bunch of other issues around energy security, reliability, emissions reduction and so forth. But nevertheless, they're in government, they've got the numbers, and so they have formed a new nuclear energy committee. They're going to run an inquiry.
It'll be on the road, right? It'll be a bit of a roadshow. I mean, they'll be going, will they, around the country and meeting the community?
Well, actually, good point. We don't know, Gary, but I've called for that today.
Right.
Because my fear is they try to do this with an offshore wind inquiry. They tried to do it all in Canberra behind closed doors, and we had to pull teeth to try to get them to go to regions. So I'm out here today basically saying we need, if this committee is going to do their job, well, let's get out there. Let's talk to people. Let's go to Collie. Let's go to other places in the country where the coalition has identified to have nuclear power plants, and let's have the conversation in a really open, transparent way.
Okay, so Ted, here's the problem I have with this whole concept is that how can that committee do its job until they know specifically what your policy details are going to include, how you see the cost of this happening, exactly where you're going to put these plants, etc. I mean, surely that detail is required before this committee can come up with anything.
Gary, I think that's fair. And we actually have the most extraordinary amount of information out there, which our political opponents refuse to engage with. And maybe now that there's a nuclear energy committee, for the first time, we just might see Labor MPs engage with the issue. So, for example, we have been clear on what sort of technology we're using. And we've made it clear it's only generation 3, small modular reactors, and also modern larger plants. But Labor has said they refuse in this inquiry to consider the modern plants. I mean, there are over 440 of these larger plants around the world today. They don't want to even look at it. We've also been clear that we're looking at a coal to nuclear strategy. As coal retires from the grid, we should be looking at zero emissions nuclear energy. They've refused to consider that. We want to talk about how nuclear works with renewables. That's part of our plan. Labor said they're not going to look at that.
What are they going to look at?
We've been clear.
What are they going to do then?
Well, this is the thing. They only want to look at small modular reactors.
Right.
And then they've got a really narrow scope, which is just ludicrous, right? Which is why it's a political stitch-up. But as far as I'm concerned, we're not going to vacate the field. I myself will get on that committee. I've insisted that my counterpart, Chris Bowen, well, he should be on it too.
Right.
And let's get out there and have the hard conversation. But Chris Bowen has declined the offer. which is why it's just a political stitch-up. But we'll do the job. We'll get out there and have the conversation because our policy has already been released. We've released more information about our policy, and we're in opposition, than Labor has about its. And it's been in government for over 2 years, and Australians are paying the highest electricity prices in history. And so we're up for the conversation.
Well, OK. Will Peter Dutton travel to Collie before this parliamentary committee might, for example?
Well, the problem is I haven't even had confirmation from Labor if they're prepared to take me up on
the idea of going to the...
We have to go to Collie, right?
Right, OK.
But look, I've been to Collie. I know Peter Dutton plans to get to Collie. I mean, you know, we're out there. We're engaging. I've already had roundtables in Collie. So, you know, we have planned a 2.5-year community engagement process in Collie upon coming to government about this very issue, because it's more than just a power plant we're talking about. We're talking about doing a regional deal with the people of Collie. So looking at transport, community infrastructure, public services. We're talking about an integrated economic development zone to attract investment in new and existing industry to Collie. These are the sort of things that, great, fantastic. Our policy's out there. Labor's running this line that there's no detail. There's an enormous amount of detail. So I intend to use this committee inquiry, even if it's a political stitch-up by Labor, to actually air our policy, and let's get some really good constructive feedback on the ground from the people who matter most, and that's the community.
What's the mood amongst the coalition, given today's news poll as well, which talks about for the first time leading on a two-party preferred basis over Labor, which would see the government fall should there be an election tomorrow? How do you feel about that? Good?
Oh, look, Gary, to be honest, I try not to get either excited or down about polls. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, looking at the stock market each day and some will go, my stocks have gone up. Well, they've gone down.
There's a pattern here, though. There's a pattern emerging, isn't there?
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And I think if I make any comment about the polls, it'd probably be this, that you have seen a pattern emerge over time, and it's been a stable pattern. The coalition has been building brick by brick, and that just goes to the stability of leadership that Peter Dutton provides the team, even on the nuclear energy policy. Brick by brick, we're building our policy. We're being transparent. People know what we stand for. There's no confusion. And we just prosecute the case, do what we think is in the national interest. And look, you know, ultimately the people have their say on polling day.
They will. Do you think that'll be an early one or not?
Oh, look, you tell me, I'll tell you. We'll both know, Gary.
Why would they?
I don't know.
Why would they? That's what my question would be.
Well, I reckon why would they too, but you just don't know. I think the Prime Minister will go when the Prime Minister thinks he's got the best chance of winning. The reality is most people I speak to are saying that they certainly feel poorer and worse off now than they did 2.5 years ago. And so, I don't know, give it another 6 months. Will they feel even better or even worse?
Time will tell. All right, interesting. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all of that, Ted. Thanks for that.
Cheers, mate. All the best. Bye-bye.
Brian.